the deal. You guys have a lab paper, and this is your lab paper. You're going to do it in the same groups that you did it before when we counted the cars. So group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You guys combine, you'll be 7. So we've got 7 groups. Oops. And this handout, as the notes say, was designed as if one person was doing an experiment and they had different exercises that they were doing. So you guys took a quiz last class period, right? A title reveals what? What does the title tell you? The IV and DV. It doesn't tell you what changes. It's just inviting you to say, hey, this is what we're going to talk about, and then you read further in. So what is the IV here? Someone raise their hand. Exercise. The effect of exercise on what? Pulse. All right. What is pulse? What does that mean? Corey? Corey, what's pulse? What is pulse? All right, yeah, it's a way of measuring your heartbeat. So let's make sure we can do this, all right? So there's 2 ways. If you got your hand, this is the thumb side. It's on a bone called the radius ulna. So I always say the radial side, the thumb side. So I'm going to turn it over here. And if you guys look, you bend your hand, you see little tendons there. And maybe you've taken your pulse. I always have the lab, when someone's doing this, like, I get no pulse. You wouldn't be alive. So you do have a pulse, you just don't know how to measure it. Okay, so there's a tendon there. I always kind of push the tendon and then shift over here. So it's kind of like between this area here, right, between that little area, that's usually a good place to find your pulse. All right, the other one's here, but don't stab yourself in the throat. All right, so in this vicinity, you're trying to, it's basically the jugular vein. All right, so that's something you need to do. So we're going to practice everything. You're going to record your pulse in beats per minute. So one way of doing it is to save a little time is we'll do it like, all right, ready, go, and then you're going to have a timer, and then at 30 seconds hit stop. And then what are you going to do? Change it by 2. It's an accepted method because 1, you don't have to go for a whole minute. 2, we don't have the time today. We don't have the time to do the time. All right, so this handout, every group before was given 2 handouts, 1 per table. You're going to turn in a final product. So I gave you 2 in case you mess up. You're going to have to change your handout. So let's look at the directions here. Every member must be involved. That's obvious. All right, no one's going to sit there and not participate. All right. I originally had it set so it said everyone, like at least 2 people. Let's just say everyone in your group should do an exercise. Okay. Now let's look at the difference here. For every person who exercises, you have to have a column for resting in your results. Okay. The group will turn in 1 paper, but let's go back to this, resting. Okay. It was designed as if one person was doing 4 exercises. What is resting in this case? In your experimental design language. Don't talk to him. What is resting here? Huh? Taking a break? Okay. Okay, if exercise is the IV, pulse is the DV, and resting is what? Someone said, say it loud. The control. Doing the experiment without the IV. A control should have a data. It should fit right in here. So here's your resting, and here's your 4 exercises. Now here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to change your paper, right? Your group is responsible for doing 4 different exercises, and if you're testing the effect of exercise on your pulse, if he does push-ups, he's not going to compare how push-ups affect, or it compares to his resting rate. He's going to compare push-ups to his resting rate. So you're going to have to create a column. So if you're doing a different exercise, you're going to measure your pulse without exercising, and then compare it to what happens when you exercise. Same thing with you. So let's make sure we understand. The group is responsible for doing 4 exercises, not every person. Does that make sense? So he's going to do 1 exercise 3 times. He's going to do a different exercise 3 times. A different exercise 3 times. Different exercise. But each one of you needs to also measure your pulse, your resting, to compare, because the control is the standard of comparison. Okay? So this is what your final result might look like. You see it says resting 1, exercise 1. Mr. Matheny, you want to point out what you said to 5th period? Resting 1, exercise 1.
get your own resting time. Okay? So you're going to do each of you are doing an exercise. You must have a resting time for each individual person. That could be a little bit different than each other. So you have a resting time. You're going to need to change your table to fit that.
This is what we gave you, and this is what you should give us. So rewrite the chart on the back. It's probably one of the first things you're going to do. Okay? Now, and another thing that he suggested yesterday was have resting 1 be the same person as exercise 1. Yeah, and then resting 2 be the same person as exercise 2. All right? Does that make sense? Because it makes absolutely no sense for her to say, wow, when I exercise, my heart rate is so much greater than her resting rate. She's a different person. She needs to do her exercise compared to her resting rate. So resting is the control. It's doing the experiment without the IV. So this is what you should be doing. You'll do that first. It's like, are you ready to exercise? Okay, ready, do an exercise. Time, take your pulse. Trial 2, ready, don't exercise. Time, take your pulse. Whew, man. All right, third trial, ready, don't exercise. Boom. And then you're going to do the same thing for your 4 trials. So let's talk some logistics about this. Okay? I got my stopwatches here. What should be your constant here? How long you exercise. Is that what you're going to say? Yeah. That means when you do your resting, your non-exercise, should you do that for the same amount of time as the exercise? Uh-huh. All right, so this is something that you guys are going to have to do. And this is where I need to give you some pointers, and then we're going to start. You're going to have multiple timing sessions. Don't confuse the timing session and the time you use to take your pulse with the time you use to exercise. So let's say you decide, well, we're going to go ahead and do the exercise for 20 seconds. That means you're going to do it for all of them. So this is how this would work. So you're ready, exercising. The people are exercising. The person says time. The timer's going to say, stop, okay, reset, and then say, okay, now take your pulse. So then they time for 30 seconds to do the pulse. All right, I'm seeing some confused looks. Do you understand what I'm getting at? You have to time your exercise, but then you have to turn around and reset the clock to time your pulse. And then so you're like, all right, done, okay, take your pulse. And then after 30 seconds, okay, stop. So you're saying stop taking your pulse, multiply by 2, record it in your table. Last bit, and then I'm done talking. You can you can maximize your time. So really, like timing session 1, everyone should be doing. That's when you're getting the resting for all of your group. Timing 2 would be, let's say, all right, you got 4 people. Well, one of you can be the timer while she's doing her exercise, she's doing her exercise, he's doing his exercise. They're all doing it at the same time. Trial 1, record it. Trial 2, record it. Of course, taking the pulse. Trial 3. And then you got one more time session. One of you will time the timer as he does his 4th exercise. So there's really like 3 groupings. This is why we can do this lab and be done in about 20 minutes. Last thing, Mr. Matheny has graciously brought in these jump ropes. So we'll talk logistics about which group's going where. Like I'll have you guys up in the front. Some people are going to be back in the back. Are there any questions? All right, so what I want to hear is you guys planning. You have about 2 minutes to figure out what you're going to do. And I'm going to give you the timers. Group 1 will have timer number 1. And then start measuring your rest. Once we're done with that, then we start exercising. Testing the effect of exercise on pulse. All right, we can go ahead and cut.